Was there a characteristic before this one that we still needed to do? No. Perfect. We're good to go. So we factor first. We're going to get x minus 4, and the bottom is the difference of squares. X plus 2, x minus 2. So our non-permissible values, x can't equal negative 2, and x can't equal 2. We have to decide, are those going to be vertical asymptotes or holes? And in this situation, nothing cancels out. So we have a vertical asymptote at x equals 2, negative 2, and x equals positive 2. Next, horizontal asymptotes or oblique asymptotes. This is group 3. The degree is bigger on the bottom. I think that's the easiest one, because when the degree is bigger at the bottom, you always have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. So if I start my graph, I can put my asymptotes on at x equals negative 2, x equals positive 2, and y equals 0. Again, when we label asymptotes, we don't put the line through the equal sign, because they're actual equations when we write them down. Next, intercepts. The y-intercept is always the easiest one to find first. Plug in 0 for x. Go to your original equation. Get negative 4 over negative 4. We get 0, 1. Second, x-intercepts. Look at your numerator. Is your numerator ever going to be 0? Yes, at x equals 4. So we would have, sorry, I can make that as 20. 4 comma 0. And again, this feels a little bit weird, but it can happen. You have a point on your asymptote. So we have a point at 4 comma 0. And that is our only x-intercept. So do we need any other nice points? Well, I have section 1 here, section 2 here, section 3 here. Based on this, I can only do section 2 right now. Because with this point here, it has to go towards the asymptote. Does it make sense that it has to go up on both sides? Because if it goes down, I invent a new x-intercept. And we found all the x-intercepts. So section 2 we could graph. Section 1 we don't have any points. And section 3 we have a point, but it's right on the asymptote, so it's kind of problematic. So we're going to need some more nice points to figure out what's going to happen. So in section 1, can you see that minus 3 is something to the left of minus 2? If I go to my original equation, or to my factored one, and I plug in minus 3, can you see the top would be minus 7, and the bottom would be 5? If I plugged in minus 3? And so I get negative 7/5. The only thing that's important for it is so that you can plug in and estimate where that would be. And that's enough to draw this section. Negative 7/5. In section 3, I want to find out, does it go up towards the asymptote or down towards the asymptote? Do you see that plugging in positive 3 would help me decide that? And if I plug in positive 3, I'm going to scroll up here and erase my mental math here. 3 minus 4 would be negative 1, and 3 squared is 9, minus 4 would be negative 1/5. that's going to be below 3 comma negative 1/5. I know that it has to go down. I still also don't really know what's happening to the right of that 4 comma 0. So I might put in another nice point of 5. What's going to happen? Is it going to go through and go above? Or is it going to bounce off and go below? Well, we'll find out. If I plug in 5, go back up here and erase this. 5 minus 4, that would be 1. 5 squared is 25 minus 4 would be 121. Wow. Which is slightly above. So we know that it goes through, hits this point, and then it needs to go back towards the asymptote. Because asymptotes tell us what it's doing at its extremes. So this, again, every single graph is going to look unique. But the 5 steps stay the same. You have to have enough points in each section to be able to tell where it's going. If you don't have enough points, you can always add another one. Table of values is very powerful. Just don't make adding and subtracting and mental math mistakes when you find it, because if you make a mental math mistake and label a point in the wrong spot, then your graph really starts to look wrong. All right, let's do B on a new page. X squared minus 4, x squared minus 4. There's the original equation. Step 1, factor the difference of squares on the top, the difference of squares on the bottom. List your non-permissible values. X can't equal negative 3 and x can't equal 3. As a result, we have to decide, are these going to be wholes or vertical asymptotes?
Right, for the non-permissible values, we only take from the denominator.
Right, because you're only not allowed to divide by 0. You're allowed to have 0 in a numerator, but we just can't divide by 0. So these will both be vertical asymptotes at x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 3 and positive. Next, what group is this? Is this oblique asymptote or horizontal asymptotes? Group 2, we're the same degree on the top and the bottom. If it's the same degree on the top and the bottom, you look at the highest degree, which is your x squareds, and look at your numbers in front. We have 1x squared over 1x squared. So your horizontal asymptote, 1 over 1, is just at y equals 1. You can start the graph. Next, find all of your intercepts. Again, your y-intercept is super easy. Plug in 0, and we would get negative 4 over negative 9, which is 4 ninths. So I go on my graph. And I get 0, 4 ninths. Next, x-intercepts. X-intercepts is when your fraction is equal to 0, so you look at your numerator, it's already factored. We're going to make it 0 at negative 2, and we'll make it 0 at positive 2. So I go to my graph. Negative 2, and positive 2. All of our points are in section 2. We have no points in section 1. We have no points in section 3. But section 2, do you have enough information? Wow, I wanted blue. There we go. Yes. We have enough in section 2 to draw. What would be a point in section 1? You would have to plug in -4, right? -4 would be an x value in section 1. If I go to my original equation, I would have 16 minus 4, which is 12. And I would have 16 minus 9, which would be 5, 7, 2. Right? And we get 12/7, which is positive. All I wanted to know is, where is that going to be? And is 12/7 above this asymptote or below that asymptote? It's a little bit above, because this is at 1, right? And 12/7 is a little bit above 1, so I plot my point in at -4, 12/7, and this is enough information for this to happen. I also need a point in section 3. Can you see mathematically that you can do the mental math of, you should be able to do very quickly the mental math of +4. You see that it's also going to be 12/7. Because if -4, when you square -4, you get 16. When you square 4, you also get 16. So you get 12/7 again, which we already know is above . So after finding your x-intercepts and y-intercepts, you have to keep finding points until you have at least one point in each section. And sometimes you need more points in a section if you're like unsure based on an asymptote, or if like on a previous example, our point in the section was like right on the horizontal asymptote, so we didn't know which way it would go. We have to choose a few more points. Questions for practice on this one are 9 and 10.